Hello, welcome to Crystal Sage Wisdom. This is Ra.
And this is Alex. How's everybody doing this week? How are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm not having lemonade, ice mocha today. How was your drink?
I'm a creature of consistency. Maybe a little boring sometimes, but makes me feel good. Just regular black coffee.
That's interesting because I guess you are consistent with your Americanos, but you actually do try out more things than I do.
Because I feel like we're just like there's just different we're all wired so differently. Like there's certain elements in my life that I really, really love to have consistency around. Like things like that, like little things like cafecito. I love my cafecito a certain way. Um, pero then there are certain elements that I love to have so much variety and movement in. And when I do not, it's very suppressive to me. Like, I mean, I'm a fish by nature, so I think that's definitely just part of my character as well. Like, I need to be in movements in certain ways, and I do love spontaneity as well. But not in every aspect either. Like, don't call me at 10 o'clock at night randomly and just be like, let's do it. And I may not
Well,
necessarily jump for
let's
that.
do it and have a party, or let's do it and have a bochinche, gossip, drag you down chat.
No, definitely not that. Definitely not that. So I don't know. I mean, what would you say is something that you like to have consistency around versus something that maybe you don't?
Definitely pizza.
Oh, yeah.
We don't need it to be upgraded. Cheese pizza, thin and crispy, or maybe Chicago style. Delicious.
That's good.
But as the community has seen, my morning drinks or early afternoon drinks could vary. Lemonade, hot coffee, iced mocha today, and I'm not drinking apple juice.
Okay, so then what about things like experiences or even just friendships? Like,
Oh, yeah, that's where I have a lot of diversity.
yeah.
We have a lot of
Yeah.
diversity there.
We always have, to be
Oh,
honest. I mean, what the community may not realize if you just met us maybe in the last few years in certain ways, or even if you go way back to like the days where we had our crystal metaphysical shop at Botanical. Um, but even before that, my sister and I, we've always had such a variety of different communities that we were always a part of.
eclectic,
Very eclectic.
very eclectic bunch, and we would thrive and really, really enjoy what we could out of every environment. We're in a church retreat. We're gonna enjoy it in a respectful. People are
Yeah,
up and dancing. I went to another different
it's true.
retreat and I saw people just jumping around like jelly beans. And at first I judged it because this was a different retreat. It was not a retreat that I was used to. And we come from community members that once we hear music, it's in our bones, it's in our rhythm. We just know how to dance with such synchronicity and with timing. And I have to confess, I was judging it because I walk into this space, I hear a live band, and I just see all of these community members jumping around like jumping jacks, jumping jeans, like they're just bouncing. There's no rhythm. They're not
They're just
in
free.
beat. And so I first start going there, and I was trying to like feel like Brooklyn, New York
Trying to
style,
be cool.
and I quickly got tired. And I also realized that what they were doing was allowing themselves to be free and allowing their bodies to spontaneously move with the beat or without the beat. And it was okay. I just didn't understand. I needed to come to the fact that it was okay for me
Yeah.
to accept that it's pretty cool to see people who are dancing out of rhythm. And we come from communities. Why do we always do judge that, right? It was like, oh, that person no got no rhythms,
No baila bien.
no baila
Something.
bien. But
But
here's what's interesting about nature. Nature has lots of rhythms and almost no rhythm. You can't really mark a rhythm with nature. And so it was a humbling lesson for me
yeah.
about spontaneity, about being in the moment, embracing it. And when I started jumping like a little jumping bean, I felt free.
Well, and also you had made a conscious choice to be a part of this retreat, right?
Right.
And so when we do that, the expectation for yourself should be, well, I at least got to give it a whole full try, like whole body try, not half-assed, not a little bit. Like at some point, you got to open yourself up to the experience and really try to see, like, is this for me? Am I gonna love this? And it seems like you did, and it seems like you had like such an amazing time. Like I went through something like that 2 years ago when I went to study herbalism up in the woods, and we were
Oh,
going to
yeah.
have our first talking stick of my life. And as I was sitting there and the talking stick was beginning, there was a lot of visitors, a lot of people there. It's a big circle. I'm noticing a pattern every single time the person has a talking stick. The amount of the things that people would share was like, oh wow, that's a lot. The amount of just even crying sessions that would erupt out of the blue, and I'm sitting there being judgy. I'm like, first of all, I'm saying to myself, what did I get myself into? Maybe I made a mistake. I don't think that. And so I'm going through all the things in my head. I don't think that I belong here. I don't feel connected. I feel so out of freaking place. I may have
Yeah.
just have been the only caramel at that. So none of these things was helping in my brain. And blah 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 blah. Obviously, looking back at it, we could see that I was doing a few things wrong. I wasn't being present because in my head I was going through all the questions of judgment and also things that were making me feel uncomfortable rather than being present with the person that was speaking. Um, and I wasn't being as open as I could have been to just receiving that experience. But to your point, fast forward, as time goes by and you start to understand what a talking stick is really about, and you
Can you
start
share
to,
what that is?
well, traditionally talking sticks are done within circles as a way to allow everyone so basically whoever has the talking stick, that's their platform, like that's their moment, that is their time to share what they want to share, talk about what they want to talk about, and no one in the circle is allowed to interrupt, not even the person that's leading the circle. It's literally a lot about respect and allowing that person the opportunity to just have the space and the attention from the group. Because remember, when you're working in groups, when you're working with that type of medicine, you're going through your own inner journey, but
Yeah.
the group also will amplify the experience or not, depending on
That's
how
true.
aligned you are or not. So the talking stick really gives someone that opportunity, that space, and that time. But it's also teaching people in the group, right, that I had to learn to be attentive to whoever has the talking stick,
To listen.
and right, to be present and to listen, but then also um, to be patient as well,
Oh,
which
yeah.
can be such a difficult. So it's sort of like different lessons happening at the same time, right? As you're waiting for the talking stick. Um,
Especially if you're in a big group and
yeah.
somebody who has a talking stick, they're like person number two talking, and they're already talking like for 10 minutes, and they haven't even started talking. And the
Yes.
class is like an hour and a half, and
And
you're
you're
like,
like,
oh boy, that means somebody who's gonna have 30 seconds to chat, if that.
so it's always interesting when you are in a talk. Like this is where responsibility comes in, like your own self accountability. Like if you're in a talking stick circle, and there's 50 people, maybe that's not necessarily, the time for you to speak for 50 minutes.
Right.
However, the reality is that you do have the floor, because the point is to really allow people that space, and especially for people that aren't necessarily comfortable in speaking up in groups, or you would never hear from. Um, because let's be honest, whenever we're in a group setting, there's always usually a group of people that tend to dominate the conversation. or the attention, right? That may be a great thing. Sometimes that's not a great thing,
Right.
especially if you're the type of person where maybe you don't have that confidence yet to speak up, or maybe you're just developing your voice, or you don't even know really what to do or how to say it, and you just have people dominating the whole conversation. So at least a talking stick allows you that moment to be like, okay, this
To
is
say
my
something.
time,
And
right?
whether or not, right? Because you have people who are naturally not talkers,
Yes, it's true.
and they will say what they have to say, and it's 5 seconds, and they you ask them, are you sure this is all you want to say, and they're content with whatever they've said. That teaches people like me who are long-winded, there's power in being concise. But at the same time, something that's so beautiful about a talking stick is that when the person who has the stick is sharing something that's important to them, if they are being held in a container where people are witnessing their story, and as you said, being present, so much healing
Mm-hmm.
can take place. Because if you think about,
Yep.
many of us are going through our day and we all have venting buddies, right? And some of us will vent with the same person over and over and over and over and
Mm-hmm.
over. But if something within that dynamic does not change, there will not be growth or expansion.
Yeah. Cause
um,
yeah, it's
right?
true.
I guess maybe this is why sometimes people sit and pay someone to listen and witness them, because there's an energy exchange there, right? I think that sometimes we don't realize the way we exhaust other people's energy in things that seem relatively free, in which our society takes for granted, we as human beings take for granted, and we've learned the tough way that sometimes taking moments for granted, you don't get them back. And that there's been moments that we've experienced in circles like that, in talking stakes, where you see someone who had the moment to share something that maybe it's been buried deep inside for years, and they just didn't have quite anybody in their lives to just really hold that container, meaning don't interrupt the person when they're trying to get through something that's emotional, because sometimes we don't realize, out of the kindness of our hearts, we don't know how to deal with somebody who's getting emotional, and we try to control it. Remember last we were, or a couple of episodes ago, we were talking about how my sister holds space for my fire, right? Like, as long as you know you're not throwing it to the person, right? Then why is it so natural for us to just want to contain it and control the other person's emotion, energy, emotion, right? So if you cut it, then we don't know where it was going. We don't know if that person was about to have an epiphany. We don't know if that person was actually going to release the story, release the pain, release the anger, release the charge. I've learned the hard way, after being in many of these settings, that even though it might be hard to hear somebody speak for so long, when you see the person walk out of the space, like if they're 10 years lighter, that's
Mm-hmm.
God that created that moment and called you to be there to help be that container to witness.
Yeah.
And
And if
it's
you're that
very powerful.
person that is, well, anyone who, honestly, in any circle, anytime you have the talking stick, even if you're not sharing something monumental, like you have that moment of like real major,
Clarity.
right? It could just be little everyday stuff, but I'll tell you, there is a healing
Hmm.
that when you are sitting there with being present with everyone else as they're taking their turn, and then it's your turn, it feels fantastic, like to be given the floor by people witnessing you and amplifying whatever it is that you're sharing. So if it's a concern, if it's something you're celebrating, because it's not always about bad or about like
Hmm.
something negative. Sometimes it's just like, mi gente, oh my God, like I'm doing this, or I connected this, or I healed from this. Like, you know, great things also come out of talking sticks. And sometimes you don't even know where you are. Sometimes it's more just a bowl of questions. But trust me, the energy and the attention of the grupo really amplifies your experience, and you do walk out of that feeling pretty great already, despite whatever what happened or not. But I wanted to like circle back to what you were saying about how sometimes we do take for granted when people are venting, or how we squish somebody in the moment of their venting in some way. Um, like, yes, listen, we all need, at least at some point here and there in life, someone that we can just let it all out with. It's important. And if you do not, if you're not the type of person that has that or has never had that, you know, look, be open to it one day, because everyone at some point needs to have that type of release from their body. There's something really powerful that happens when you literally take your thoughts and your emotions that's stored in your body and your brain, and you give it life through your words. Not from the perspective of, if you're suffering and you're saying you're suffering, that you just want to energize suffering. No, but you're beginning to release it by speaking of it. So giving it life is also taking that step towards it. I think what happens is that when you are talking specifically about things around grief, and all you do is stay in that, I'm in grief, and never do anything to try to shift it or change it or talk about anything else, that's where it gets hairy. That's where you start amplifying more of that negative
Right.
vibe, because you're just keeping yourself in that loop. But talking about it initially, or even talking about it for a little bit while you're in the process of healing, figuring it out, giving yourself the right communication, because a lot of times we don't even know how to express stuff. You're giving that part of you the opportunity to finally be like, it has the life to leave your body, your mind, your emotional
Afuera.
body. So really powerful stuff. And that's why it is important that when we do reach those moments, that you have someone that you trust, that you feel comfortable with, that can hold the space in a way that they're not gonna sort of try to shape it in the way that they feel comfortable
It's like,
with,
I
right?
don't like it when you
That's a little
cry
bit too
like
much,
that.
right? um, but then also, that won't be judgmental, because that is
Yeah, it's so
such a
hard.
big one, to have someone that can hear you out and just be that person. I'm hearing you, I'm not judging you. And that is a very, very big distinction. And you will find that that is way harder to find and to have than we realize. And to my sister's point, it's why people will rather pay sometimes to be in a more trade-off experience, where they're gonna sit. They rather sit with someone,
Who's really going to listen, even though maybe
right?
they're also invested in what's going to come out of the exchange. But I'm not shaming that,
Mm-mm.
because we also live in a society where we don't realize that even if you're not exchanging money, you are exchanging energy every single time you
Oh
have
yeah,
an interaction. And if it's
yeah.
only going one way,
Mm-hmm.
someone is paying a higher price here.
Yeah, or rather, someone's losing a lot more
Hmm.
than gaining. Never underestimate, like never take for granted when you can be in a situation with someone that you trust. Like, how they would always say traditional therapy, like to find a great therapist is like finding the perfect shoe. Like, it's always so challenging, but when you do, it is worth it, right? Like, in society, we have all agreed that when we find the perfect therapist, it is worth their price for the ways that they can support you. Well, that is true for all other forms of mental, emotional, and spiritual support. I know that society hasn't necessarily, as a culture, created some sort of traditional way of looking at how you value when you sit down with people, and they're providing a particular service to you, especially if it's not a mainstream service. um, but never, don't get it twisted. It is always an energy exchange,
Hmm.
and we have to become a little bit more conscientious when we are sitting with someone that has a particular expertise. You know, not to necessarily just take. Figure out a
It's
way.
too much.
Yeah, figure out a way.
I've been in parties in a club atmosphere on a Friday night with a drink, and the moment someone found out what our business was in the metaphysical world, they were asking 21 questions. What do you sense from me?
Like,
You think I'm trying to do a metaphysical chat anywhere when I'm like, where is the environment? This is what we're talking about it, right? In that setting, in a club,
yeah,
maybe not the time to
maybe
try
not
to
so
have
much.
or have an engaging talking stick chat with someone
No,
who might be
no,
drunky anyway.
right.
It's not fruitful in any way.
And it's off hours. Like
It's off
that's the
hours.
person's time to unwind, which they're in their every right to be doing.
And
At
sometimes
most,
we don't see that. Like we don't
no,
get that.
no,
And look, why are you sensing Ra is a little bit tinged on this? Is that a word? I don't know if that's a word.
tinged.
Tinged, like
I
hot,
think so.
caliente on this subject. Because I think, look, we're experiencing a loneliness epidemic. We're experiencing an epidemic of people not being able to trust human beings and to trust people. Yet, we take advantage and we disregard things that are free in our lives every day. The person who smiles at you, the
It's
one who
true.
makes you breakfast, the one who might fix you dinner, the person who's doing your laundry, right? Whoever is helping in your life to, as we cohabitate, right? But we, as much as we as human beings and life wants to tell us that we could do it all on our own, that has been one of the biggest mistakes
Lie.
that has lies, right, that we have been indoctrinated with, because look at the modern day horrors as human beings, as young families, young modern families have tried to be on their own. They move out into a city and they have no one they know, they have no neighbors. Now there's a kid, they need to rely on someone. There's no mother, there's no titi, there's no friend, there's no extended family. So I completely understand why people have adopted non-blood related people, right, as family. Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing.
Fine. But we need people in our lives. And those of us that have people in our lives, um, something that comes up all of the time for re-examination is, how are you treating them in your life? Are you honoring them? Why is it that we are so much better as human beings being kinder to strangers, being
Always.
more respectful, being more polite, being more gentle? And then we see our mom. I mean, to be fair, people who are in close relations, because we know each other's ticks, we just
It's
know.
also harder.
It is harder.
It's harder in that way. What is it that saying? You want to know how enlightened you are? Go spend a week with your family.
Oh my
You know,
God.
we,
Put
that
put the Perez's in a car
you
trip and see how that goes.
that line will come up all the time for all of us, especially in spiritual metaphysical circles, when people would be like, I'm already at this great level. Everything's perfect. I've done my work. Da da da. Would be like, did you go spend a week with your family at least? Or because usually the people closest to you also know your buttons. There's also a lot of emotional stuff, and it's always like a big sure sign how far or not far you've gone with your inner work, and that's everybody's personal journey.
Everybody's personal journey.
know.
But look, when we were in the metaphysical community and we were being transparent with some of the people who were in our inner circle about some family challenges that we were having, that seemed so like, why are our family members challenging us as we're beginning our business endeavors? There's no celebration here. It's just almost like if we needed to ask permission as grown adults to family members that never even pay one bill or have no influence in your life, but they just. So then those people by default ended up sort of being still in the circle, but on the outside, where you love them, you honor them, but you understand how much of, because those are one of those expenses. We have an uncle, God rest his soul. he was my buddy growing up, in a sense, right? There was so much of him that reminded me of myself. And there came a point in our adult lives where, unfortunately, I felt sick after I would leave him, because he was in such a angry place that when he would see someone, right? When you see a family member, it's almost like a release. Like, oh, I can just, but then there was no awareness of, because you trust me, because you know me, you dumped on me, but you also dumped this toxicity. And literally, I would feel sick. Like, my stomach would hurt. I would be
Yeah.
shaken. If I was in a happy mood, I would feel like I had a headache. Um, these are real consequences. Now, let's say after that experience, I was right on my way to teach a gratitude class or yoga class. Do you think I'm going to be walking into that environment at my best? So this is sort of like a little example of how my sister and I started to become clearer about our boundaries with our friends, with our family, because when you have something you know you're doing, like we were at Botanical, we knew how we were going to be of service and how we wanted to respect the people who walked in through that door, and other people had different ideas of what that looked like. And if that took away from us being more effective to the space, then it was something that we definitely looked at, um, and sort of like figured out. Uh, we definitely live in times where people are very angry at people. They're very angry at family members, and I get that. Um, then there are moments where you wake up and all of a sudden you find out your loved one has gone. Are you going to be okay with yourself in those moments? See, that happened when our dad, when he passed away. I was in such a busy moment in my career, in my life, that there was hardly any time. And I didn't live in this neighborhood where my dad, with our parents. And our dad was getting sick. And there was this one night, I just stopped by to grab something. And he was like, "When are you going to come hang out with me?" And I did the classic tomorrow. And guess what? Tomorrow never came, because the next day he had a hard fall that he was taken away in the ambulance. He spent some time in the hospital, and one thing led to another. That was it. I mean, I did get to say and make my peace at the hospital, but I didn't get the opportunity to hang out with him like I thought I was going to get. A lot of times we say tomorrow, and then tomorrow doesn't come. So then, how do we reconcile those moments? And again, we're all learning here, all of us, every day. It doesn't matter how long we've been doing this journey, we're all still learning. We've had family members that have passed. My sister keeps trying to get me to talk about this subject, and I've been resistant.
Well, I feel, to circle back to what you were saying earlier, we tend to give our best to the outside. That's just the human nature. You look around, and most people, they will give their best to their job,
Yeah.
to their bosses, to relatives, to, because we always say you got to start from here out, right? So do you live with a partner? Do you have children? Out. You got to start there within your home. Out. Who are you giving your best to? Your best time of the day, your best energy, your best thoughts, your best efforts. And no, the thing
Your
is,
best words,
right, the best words, the best patience, like,
the best hugs, the best
right, the
kisses.
best loving, like, the thing is, we all do that. It's a dance. No one actually gets this recipe 100% right. Well, because life is always changing, there's always something happening. So even if you have some sort of nice rhythm, that rhythm will always get fucked with in some way or the other, and you have to readjust. So
Yeah.
we're all constantly trying to figure out what's the right way, what are the right boundaries, how do I blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, the reality is we tend to show up way more intently for outside things and outside people than we do even for ourselves, mi
Or our
gente,
partners.
or our children sometimes.
Yeah.
Like it, you sometimes people don't want to hear what the truth is, but that happens way too much within so many of our dynamics, in this life. And it's like you have to do that real check-in and real honest talk with yourself, like how, what am I not really prioritizing, and what am I not prioritizing in the right way? What do I have the right boundaries set in place to protect what I should be prioritizing? Like, why is it that if random families coming over, you go? I mean, Latinos are famous for this. Mira, limpiamos esa casa, we clean the house like
Mm-hmm.
like nobody's business. But why you gotta clean it for somebody on the outside, but you don't make that effort for you? You don't
Right.
deserve it. You don't deserve that
See, I'm
yumminess.
like that with dinners. Like, I'll make the best dinners for other people, and then I'm like, how come I'm not making myself a delicious dinner?
Right.
I deserve it too.
You do.
But you know what? That's the upbringing. We've grown up like that. We've grown up like that. We've seen our parents, our elders, so many of the women in our families do that. Eating standing up, that is something I still do, and I get in trouble. It's like, why are you eating standing up?
Yep.
Because the food's right there, and the impatience. I can't wait. I just want to start enjoying it right away. But why can't I just sit down and enjoy the luxury of just
Your meal that you made.
right? Because then when you really do some research, you realize that's not the best, healthiest way to consume something.
No,
Eating and going, and eating and running, eating and standing,
no,
but
it
being
isn't.
relaxed,
And
enjoy,
present, away from your
present.
phone.
That's the biggest thing I've been learning my whole lifetime since I was incarnated into this little body.
Pero you bring up an excellent point, and a lot of this is very much cultural, because, and meaning like the rooted mindset, right, of always give the best out, like
And I get it, like right,
yeah,
that
because you
they
want to
would tell
give.
you it's like one of the things that we would get is like if you're gonna give somebody a gift, don't give them rags, give them something
Which
good,
we
give
agree
them the
with,
best. We agree with that.
100%.
But then we went too far in certain places where we started growing up with messages like, what are the neighbors gonna think? Wait, what? What are the neighbors gonna think about my new friend? Who
Right,
the
like-
fuck cares who my new friend is?
It's like all of a sudden the outside, it went from
These neighbors and reporters that nobody gave a crap about
it went from
were important.
give your best foot forward when you're outside, to all of a sudden it goes a step further in where now the outside is controlling, what you should or should not be doing by, whatever cultural societal standards are happening in that moment, right? And we're not trying to say that you shouldn't go out and represent yourself in the best way. You should, we're not trying to say that give your best representation. First impression, mi gente, does really matter. We're not trying to say those things shouldn't happen, or that you shouldn't do it, or that it's not important. They 100% are. What we're trying to say is that everything is all about a harmony, and if you only putting your best foot forward to how you're presenting yourself out there, and never even just to yourself, like we would, and at our shop, the majority of us would always talk about how even awful we speak to ourselves in our mind. Like we would, good morning, walking down the street, good morning, how are you? Have a great day. Did you have a good weekend? But then internally, we're like, oh, you're so stupid. Why
You
didn't you
suck.
do that? My God, you failed again. You're not good enough. You're never going to be like this. Like, even our
Cancel
own
it with
inner,
the universe if that's happening to
yeah,
you.
mira, pa' fuera with that. Like, even
Throw
our,
out those tremendo
it
wood
has
chip
to start with that
chats.
inner dialogue to
Throw
be
out the
correct.
tremendo wood chip dialogue.
Because you deserve it.
We're in treat yourself season, and do so responsibly. Do so responsibly. You deserve it. Mira,
and balanced.
Especially like we're coming from a place, and it's really interesting, right? They are human beings that love themselves in a plastic way, and maybe it's a little unhealthy. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about strengthening the inside, strengthening the home, strengthening the temple, giving love. Like, maybe you're bringing flowers to your job to make the environment look and smell good, but do you ever bring flowers and, to honor your home, right?
Yeah.
Like little things like that, or
Excuse me.
just just sort of kind of getting into the spirit of things. I think honestly, like, if we recognize that we are in a global crisis, that loneliness is a crisis, that mental wellness is a crisis, then we are all being invited to take a step forward in a comfortable direction to help bring more of that community honey. And with that comes responsibilities and loyalties, right? Like when we host stuff, even on the internet, even though we're not saying it, but Cafecito Break is always a talking stick circle. Always. And part of it is we have to know who's in the circle. And the other day we had a little interruption in one of our online chats, and we were in the middle of like the introductions, and somebody who I didn't know popped in and just started speaking. Not only cut the flow of somebody who was in introduction mode, but drove the conversation away from whoever was speaking in introduction mode. And so pretty much it's like if my sister's holding the stick, this person came in and went like this, blah 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 blah. Thumbs down. That person was removed right away. That's a strong boundary.
Which is part of self care and part of your mental and emotional self care. I think that you bring up a great point. We are living in crisis mode now. When
And
it
you have
comes
to
to
be
these areas.
responsible. And for me, what's most important is preserving that circle and that flow. If I don't know you and you're just coming out without even introducing, without even saying, excuse me, and you just went, you took the stick and the mirror and just positioned it to yourself. I don't care who you are and what you have to contribute. You don't get a chance to speak at this moment because you've shown by your actions that you're not trustworthy.
But it could also just be that also, remember, people don't know these things. And I feel like one of the reasons why we do, well, besides all the poisons in our food, air, and water, which contribute heavily, and frequencies, those are all other conversations. Besides those things that contribute to our mental diseases in our world, there's also a whole bunch of children or younger folks that have not really ever been raised to understand these boundaries or to understand, what to do or not to do, uh, or to have sharper social cues or to have sharper group cues, right? And a lot of the adults, some of them don't know either, or they've forgotten
Well, they don't
because
care. Most of the time, they don't care. Most of it is,
sometimes
I have to say what I have to
sometimes
say,
they
and
do
you're going to
not
have to
care.
hear me.
It's true.
Blah, blah, blah.
But I feel like that's also a symptom of our, digitized. Everybody has developed a sharp tongue, and when it comes to, I'm just gonna speak when I want to and say whatever the hell I want, and everything's social media. It's almost like, that's what I'm saying. People have forgotten that a lot of social respect, and that even though we're living, times do change, and even though so much in our society have changed, but some things have not. And in order for the world to be really peaceful, being able to have respect and have boundaries with respect socially, but starting, of course, with yourself. You gotta have self respect first, you know, It's important, and I feel like a lot of our elders, like, and when I say elders, people our age and older, like I feel like they have gotten so out of touch with some of these behaviors and
Oh
self-control.
my
Some of
God.
them have really just come out their ass. I'm not just gonna look at the youngins and just say, it's their fault, or oh my God, they do it. No, no, no. You know what? A lot of us our age and older, I want to talk to all of you. I feel like a lot of you have forgotten how to really be to remember that you also are a mentor. Your people, younger people are looking at you,
Absolutely.
for inspiration. And if you're coming out your ass, if you're not setting healthy boundaries, how do we expect the younger ones that have no experience whatsoever? Our generations and up, we have the experience of the old world and the new world. You know, we don't have an excuse to be able to say, oh, but I just grew up in a world where this is just the way it was. No, you don't have
Right, where the elders have the floor and everybody
exactly,
listens and yields.
exactly, where
But
you
that doesn't
respect your
mean, right,
elders.
elders doesn't equate to wisdom all of
No,
the time.
no, they do
Even
not.
though we would like it, and then there's also a throwaway modern culture that we exist in that wants to throw away everything, like the elders, which are timeless books. Whether or not
Timeless books.
they
I
might be a
love that.
cranky book
It could be a cranky
that
book.
you're like flicking through the
Mad.
pages, right?
It could be a mad book.
It could be a mad book, but there's still like history. And again, life is about finding balance. And obviously, as we've spoken on several themes today, really, it's about relationships. It's about cultivating relationships. It's about being in person with people and cultivating those cues. So when, at the beginning of us hosting circles, when somebody would interrupt, I didn't feel comfortable enough to deal with it. Versus the other day, I was like, remove,
I'm not
and then
doing
I
it.
explained what went wrong. And hey, you could come back again. But we also had a side conversation the other day with somebody who wanted to participate in one of our chats. But what they were going to contribute was going to be, and that was not something, that's not why we built our platform. It wasn't to participate in any gossip. It wasn't to energize gossip, especially something that had nothing to do with anything we created or generated, right? Because then we also, that's when you sort of got to look like, what are we creating here as we create something beautiful and together? But at the same time, what are we going to do? Throw away people
No, we can't.
because because they wanted to participate and we were not trying to have a gossip session at that time? No. No, we're not going to do that. We had a private conversation. We explained where we stood and we made peace, and the person understood. We're all adults here. We don't have to be a-holes because at the moment, anybody could be having a bad moment. Anybody could be having a tantrum, a flare up.
We all have moments.
But too much goes wrong because we hide from those uncomfortable moments and we don't want to deal with them. So we have people who either want to micromanage the crap out of other humans, or people who just want to coexist away from humans. And I don't know, these don't seem to be like they're going
Of,
to work in the evolution and the
of
expansion
humanity.
of humanity.
It's too polarized.
It's too polarized. We need to start learning how to leave our boxes. You
Why?
could be, you could go back to your box, but go and play with other boxes. Listen, hear another perspective. Doesn't mean you have to adopt a whole new
Yeah.
way. You know, but you never know. You never know what you might learn. You never know if you might meet a new friend, if you
Yeah.
might gain a new perspective, a new
A new love of
insight,
something.
right? Because in those stories, like when we began this conversation today and we shared stories of real world stories of us being in newer settings that we didn't know, we didn't understand, we didn't have the roadmap yet.
And we were very uncomfortable
We
in.
were very uncomfortable, and as humans, we did what humans do, we judged it. And then we had to make a choice. do we move from this place of resistance and judgment to sort of explore, see if we may like this? And I had a great time being a jumping bean, and
And
I will experience being a jumping bean as
often
often
as
as I
possible.
can.
And and then I eventually became one of those women that I thought sounded crazy when she got the talking stick, being all in my emotions and in my moment. And so, initially I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it's a little out there. And then I became that little out there myself, because like my sister said, you embrace it. You just go with it. And so what we're saying to you is when you are stepping out to try new things or to be in different communities, you will feel moments of discomfort
And that's okay.
or even things that you're like, oh no, not for me. That's okay. Actually,
It's
that's
part of being
normal.
human,
You're
right?
right. It's part of being human. Also, it's part of knowing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes stepping out and doing something that's different or hanging out with different people also confirms to you what you already knew.
Yeah.
But because now you stepped out and did it, now you can actually say, well, I did it. I tried it. I gave it a real, genuine go opportunity, and I realized it's not for me. Freaking fantastic. That's more information for you. You don't have to have the shoulda, coulda, woulda, or the big question mark. Like a lot of us, there's a lot of things that we'll like wish we did, or haven't done, or that we secretly hold that question mark. Like, oh, would I like that? Would I be good at? We all have those little hidden things. So I think like life and living is about being able to face some of those question marks.
Listen, I never thought that I would ever in my life have a Boj. That day
Okay.
that we were celebrating, don't act like you weren't there. That day that we were celebrating my sister's birthday at Beehive Oven, that doesn't exist anymore. And it was my sister's birthday, and there were these human beings at the next table, and they were celebrating, I don't know what, but we were having breakfast and orange juice, and they were having beer. So a Boj is a beer and orange juice, an orange juice.
Mi gente, don't knock it till you try it because um, that would have not been my first choice
Me
either.
neither.
And then they were like, because it was my
Do it.
birthday.
Listen, it was a free round, so we enjoyed it,
And
right?
it was my birthday. I'm starting a whole new thing, a whole new, like, a journey around the circle, around the sun. And even though it was like a little blizzard that day,
Oh, yeah,
but
that's true.
I was beginning my brand new journey. So, yeah, it was like, bring it on. It was delicious.
And you never know. You see, that was one of those moments where we thought we're gonna have a quiet little birthday
There was
in
not
this
going to be
restaurant,
anybody
and was gonna be
around.
nobody around, and it turned into a Cheers-like experience where
Oh my God,
not
so much
just
fun.
the people who offered us these free drinks, but everybody who was there at the restaurant got to participate in free drinks. It was an amazing experience.
It was so much fun.
Is what can happen when you allow yourself to just be in the moment and experience it. And had we been like, ugh, we would have not had that story to tell.
Listen, it was one of my favorite birthday like experiences
And we do
throughout
have
my
part
life
of that on video.
because it was literally just my sister and I were like mostly strangers,
Yeah.
and yet, and the thing is there was a few people that weren't even from here. They were also from out of town.
Yeah.
And so we had a couple tourists. So there we were,
A
whole
bunch
bunch
of
of people we really didn't know
strangers.
having a freaking blast. It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun on that cold blizzard. Nobody's really out in the streets kind of day.
No.
And hey, we covered a lot of different subjects today, but really the core thing is about connecting. This is why we're doing these shows outside, because we want to walk our walk.
Yeah.
We also have felt a little bit cooped up indoors, and
Gotta
we
be
love to be
out.
with the elements and however they love to showcase themselves, however they love to spread around our hair. Um,
And it's nice to chat about these everyday moments that and opportunities for you to put your social skills to the test, because every moment we wake up, it's an opportunity to refine them, define them, refine them, you know.
What's the homework? We didn't cover the homework, we didn't go over it, but leave it in the chat if you did the homework and spent some time with the elder.
Yeah, did you spend any time with your elder?
We'll deep dive a little bit because it's already getting close to wrapping up this episode. So, yeah, did you spend some time with the elders, with an
Yeah.
elder? If you didn't get the chance to do it, you have a perfect opportunity to do so now.
Yeah, and it can be from many angles, you know, like
Connect with someone.
call them, send them a text, a message, send them some flowers, anything. You know, it doesn't have to be something, you know, so big. I am definitely currently trying to connect with the elder that I have been trying to reach. She is um, somebody that became my college mom. If you went away to college and you wound up having one of those, you were blessed. You know, I can tell you that when I first met her, I was like, I went to her to, she was going to connect me with a part time job on campus. And when I first met her, I was thinking, oh, this lady's intense and very intimidating. And then she was like, I'm going to put you in my office. And I was like, fuck, what the hell? I walked out of that office like, oh, this is going to be a long ass year. Nonsense. She
Nonsense.
wound up being one of my greatest friends for the next 4 years of college, and literally like my college mom. Anything from when I tell you she had my back, like literally down to if I was broke because I was a broke college student, she would take money out of her own pocket. If she would make sure that all my paperwork for college was always just done up on time, like look out for me, and even at moments would put my ass straight if she thought that I was coming out my ass a little bit, and it was just like, it's not happening, you know. Along with always looking out for me with different other ways, and you know, I'm never gonna um, take that for granted. I was so lucky to have had that. Anyway, I've been trying to contact her. She's been a little incognito, and so my homework is still ongoing.
She
with
still
that.
has ongoing homework. I didn't complete my homework, so I'm gonna hopefully have some reportings to do next week.
Yes, you will.
I'm starting to melt, even though I'm in the shade, and this is a great indication for me to start wrapping it up. Thank you for joining us this week for episode 9 completion. Thank you for subscribing to Crystal
9.
Sage Wisdom. Please keep sharing comments, your likes, and if you want to offer a donation, buy us a cup of coffee, please know that it will just go to investing in our independent platforms and the shows and reports that we produce for our community members.
Hey, mi gente, I'm gonna do a shameless plug here.
Do a shameless plug.
I'm into it, but you know, my sister and I spoke a lot about being able to sit with people that hold space with you, and that is something that we offer. We call them listening sessions. We usually, you know, will tailor it according to what your goals may be. And so, if anyone is interested, or if you're ever looking to have that, we are not traditional therapy. That is not what we do. That is not what we're trying to replace. But if you want more information, or you're looking, or you're interested, you know, contact us.
Yeah, visit the link that will be at the page botanical.com, and you could find more information there.
And send us any questions that you have. And like my sister said, thank you so much for joining our community. We've had some, you know, every week we have a growing community, and that makes us feel so good and so extra excited to just be here with everybody and, you know, start getting to know you all. So thank you once again for subscribing, and when you get a chance, feel free to recommend our page to someone you know that maybe wants to come along on this journey with us.
Tutus.
Ciao.